with a behind-the-scenes look at the making of Gladiators. The spectacular set for Gladiators cost £750,000 to design and build. But it started life like this, a small-scale model. Although it would be 100 times bigger, each ridge, crag and overhang on this mini wall would be accurately recreated on the real thing. I'm sure the contenders would find it easier to roll about in plastic atmospheres like these models. The biggest event in Gladiators is the Eliminator, the most demanding physical test possible. Even when it's this size, it looks just as awesome. The producers decided the first obstacle, the cargo net, should be followed by something fast and visually exciting, like the slide. Next, a short sprint onto a mini trampoline to bounce contenders up onto the platform for the overhead ladders. The mini trampoline idea was later dropped in favour of the scramble sheet. Next came the rolling beams, then up onto the second energy-sapping cargo net. Then a test of contenders' courage was needed, so the producers decided on the visually spectacular 90-foot zipline ride down to the arena floor. As if all that wasn't enough, they agreed to leave the toughest test until last, a desperate sprint up the horrifying Travelator before swinging through the paper burst to victory. With the design stage complete, the real thing had to be built. The producers commissioned Kimpton Walker, scenery builders for Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables and a host of other West End spectaculars to make the model a life-size reality. Dozens of highly skilled scenery builders lavished enormous care over every aspect of the set. Those all-important hand grips were attached to the wall face with 4-inch bolts. Once the hand grips were secured, a cement compound was mixed to fill even the smallest of gaps. Inside, Quentin Chases, the program designer standing on the right, watched as a technician put a few finishing touches to the first atmosphere. And with the door off, it was only right that the producer and director of Gladiators, Nigel Lithgow, should give the atmosphere its first tentative test drive.
Yeah. Don't got the door off. Gotta get it going, man. Yeah, don't worry. Stop me, please.
So, with the prototype atmosphere getting a definitive thumbs up, the Kimpton Walker technicians swiftly got to work on the others. After the solid steel ball has been welded together, every edge on every piece of metal had to be filed down. With all the equipment used on the show, safety of contestants and gladiators alike is of paramount importance. Inside, the technicians were constructing the cushion padding which would surround the equipment.
This will be replaced.
Nigel Lithgow and Quentin Chases toured the vast workshop, overseeing every stage of construction. Everything had to be just right. In another part of the building, the technicians were constructing the cushion padding which would surround the 4 towers used for swing shot.
These are various steps, of course. This is for swing shot. Yeah.
So that's sort of what you'll see on the sides.
Yeah. Like that going on. So even if they...
Almost like
yeah.
that on the front.
So if they bang into it, they're still...
Well, they'll catch that. They've got the handrail on it here, which will show you.
Do it again, let's do it again.
Whoa, stitch that, my son.
You see, everything has a thorough testing by the producer.
Production manager Adrian Pegg never missing a chance for a quip. With the swing shot cushions approved, the workforce set about construction. While outside, one of the huge metal swing shot tower structures onto which the padding would be bolted was getting an early lick of paint. Here, you couldn't respray my Cortina while you're at it, could you? The tower requires strength and rigidity, if only to stand the weight of the likes of Warrior and Shadow. Meanwhile, the producer's tour of inspection continued. This may look like a scrapyard, but it is in fact the metal shop where highly skilled technicians were assembling the elaborate web of supporting struts for the other 3 swing shot towers. Hang on, where does this bit go? Oh, I see. On there, like that. Spot welding, clamping, even rubbing it down with a bit of emery paper, teams of skilled technicians worked day and night in order to meet the deadline. The place might have looked like Steptoe's backyard, but the craftsmanship was the very best. Everyone worked from plans drawn by Quentin Chases, and everything had to be precise to within a millionth of an inch. Oh, give or take an inch here and there. Meanwhile, the production team's tour of inspection had reached the electrical workshop. There's enough cabling used on Gladiators to rewire an entire street of houses.
There's a mock piece of floor with load testing.
Nigel and Quentin carefully examined the sensors which were to sit in the middle of each scoring pod in atmospheres.
And there'll be a black gasket on there, so you won't see the snow.
So that's going to take the weight of the atmosphere.
Which we've done. And the trucks, the heaviest one is the roller truck, which probably goes about a ton.
786 lamps would be used on the show, powered by 25 miles of cabling. So he's going to have his work cut out.
These are on our assault things, pointing outwards, and we can gear these to light up whenever you want. Really, I mean, either when he fires or when it explodes, or on all the time. We can.
And does that flash as well? That's what's going under the floor.
That box contains just some of the cabling which lies beneath the flooring of Gladiator Arena. It's packed ready for the trip to Birmingham. It looks heavy.
Good.
But not as heavy as those metalwork structures. That's 5 tons to start with. Now, let's shift that one. Come on. Pull, lads. Go on, put your back into it. See? It's easy once you've got it going. So, after thousands of man-hours, the construction of 836 tons of equipment for Gladiators was finally complete. It was loaded aboard 24 trailers and left Kimpton Walker's workshops in London to head up the M1 to Birmingham's National Indoor Arena. But the problems didn't stop there. As soon as the equipment arrived at the arena, it was discovered that the first lorry was too tall to drive through the scene dock door. So someone had the bright idea of letting some air out of the lorry's tyres and reducing its height by 6 inches. Slowly, with the lorry scraping the top of the doorway, it managed to get through. They had to do the same thing with at least 24 lorries. Finally, everything arrived. All they had to do now was unload it. But this was the area which would be miraculously transformed into the famous Gladiator Arena. One of the first things to be rigged was the elaborate grid suspended from the arena ceiling, which would carry the heavy lamps and other lighting equipment required by top TV lighting director Brian Pierce, and the state-of-the-art sound system mapped out by sound supervisor Mark McLaughlin. All the time, more and more equipment was arriving. Someone even remembered to gift wrap an atmosphere. Gently, lads, there's probably someone asleep in there. Hope that man in the mauve shirt gets out of the way. That looks easy enough. But not working at that height. Rows and rows of lamps were rigged. All different intensities of light and a whole range of different colours. And if they weren't enough, they had a few to spare. I hope he's not pinching those, they cost a fortune. In every corner of the National Indoor Arena, people were at work. And what an incredible venue it is. Once the lighting and sound systems had been rigged, the next thing was the laying of the Gladiator Arena floor. Skilled carpenters used over 2 million screws on the specially raised flooring, which would take the weight of an atmosphere, but also hide the miles of wiring which would power the lamps dotted all across the black surface. This was one of the final pieces of the flooring jigsaw to put together. Go on, now go. Give it a kick. That was just a glimpse of the hard work which went into the construction of the Gladiator Arena. But the breathtaking action which followed made it all worthwhile.